Oh my god, you no! They've got flare guns, they'll be fine. Hi, and welcome back to the inside of my head. It's been a while since I last did a Pacific Rim video, so today I'm going to give you the top 5 most powerful Pacific Rim Kaiju, followed by my 5 personal favorites. Yeah! Oh my god, and look, somebody's made a clock with a breach in the middle and a kaiju for each hour, like, in order of their appearance in the franchise. What time is it, I hear you ask? Well, it's a quarter to f***ing Mutavor. Anyway, enough chit-chatter. Let's start this kaiju list in order of power. Let's start with number 5, Shrikethorn. Covered in barbs and flailing 2-spiked tails around, Shrikethorn is one of 3 kaiju to emerge from the artificial breaches and give us the climactic battle in Pacific Rim Uprising. It's a category 4 and that's 90 meters tall, weighs just under 2,600 metric tons, and can walk on either all 4 legs or just its hind legs. It's got the best of both worlds, kind of like a hermaphrodite. It's got 5 glowing blue eyes on each side of its hammerhead-like head, and these 2 tusks on its lower jaw. Interestingly about this guy is that it seems to have the foresight to hold off and not attack from the off, like the Raijin and the Hakuja do. And I find that interesting mainly because what the f*** was it doing while its brothers were in there getting slaughtered? Checking its Facebook? That's funny because nobody uses Facebook anymore. Seemingly picking the opportune moment to jump into the fight, and when it does, it opens up with its signature move to fire off a series of massive spikes from its twin tails. Now, other than this, we don't see a lot of this guy, as his main function seems to become 1/3 of this guy, and this is Mega-Kaiju, and we'll talk about him more in a couple of minutes. Now, I toyed with the idea of giving Copperhead this spot on the list, as that's also a Cat 4, but given Shrikethorn's spike-throwing abilities, just gave it the edge for me. Number 4, Otachi. A category 4 from the original movie and one of my most favorite creature designs in the franchise. This is one of the most powerful kaiju, not only because it's the longest or it can fly or spit corrosive acid, but because of its guile and cleverness. As we see here, it sneaks around, making use of its surroundings to burst through a building and surprise Gypsy Danger. Physically speaking, Otachi has a double crest on its snout, which makes it look really distinctive, as well as a jaw that can split in 2, and this always reminds me of that disgusting fucking vampire from Blade 2, inside of which there's a glowing blue tongue, and it can spit out some kind of radioactive acid that burns into Gypsy Danger's armor. It also has a long tail with 3 pincers on the end, which can be used as a club or a claw against Jaegers, and it has these sharp dorsal plates running down her spine. And I also really love these bludgeon type things on its elbow joint. Oh, bludgeon. Even the word is fucking evil. Bludgeon, bludgeon, bludgeon. I'm gonna bludgeon you. Anyway, we see this thing take on both Mark II Crimson Typhoon and Mark I Cherno Alpha by itself, and it even kills the 3-armed Jaeger from China, before combining with Leatherback to take out Cherno Alpha. After all of this, Otachi attacks Striker Eureka, but the Jaeger quickly gets the upper hand. Remember that Striker is the most advanced in the Jaeger fleet at that stage, so I guess that this is understandable. But Otachi is saved when Leatherback emits its EMP pulse and shuts Striker down. Now, something to note is that Otachi's pain threshold appears to be greater than other kaiju, as we see after she has her tail cut off. Otachi still steadily flew into the atmosphere without the amputation even really slowing it down. Quite incredible, considering every time I stub my pinky toe, I'm lying crippled on the floor crying like a girl. Now, it's round about here that I thought about adding Apex from Pacific Rim the Black, as it really does seem like quite a powerful kaiju. And when I say kaiju, it's actually more of a biomech hybrid. But I think I'm going to leave it off this list for now, just because A, not enough is known about Apex at this point, and B, I'm probably going to do a whole video just dedicated to Apex by himself at some point. Number 3, Raijin. Another kaiju from the final battle of Uprising, Raijin is only the second Cat 5 to be seen in the universe, and probably the most distinctive in the Uprising movie, mainly because of its weird head that it has, and has an armored outer shell lined with spikes, protecting a fleshy inside that it can open and close when it needs to protect itself. But not only that, the outer shell can somehow convert the force from impacts into energy, which it channels along its body and can unleash back at its opponent to devastating effect. I mean, look how far it throws Gypsy here. Like Shrikethorn, the most interesting aspect of this is how it combines with Shrikethorn and Hakuja to form Mega-Kaiju, but like I said, more on him later. Number 2, Slattern. The first Category 5 we've ever seen in the universe, you could say that Slattern is still the most powerful single kaiju ever created. It's very much the boss of the first movie, being sent in with Raiju and Scunner to defend the breach from being blown up by the PPDC. It's big, like I saw one size chart where it was bigger than legendary Godzilla. It's fast, and it's strong, having 4 arms and 3 tails, each with a triple spike at the end. Like Otachi, it has a head that's a similar shape to a hammerhead shark, with 4 glowing eyes. It can roar and blast out a sound wave of some kind, and it's so tough that it even survived when Stryker detonated its nuclear bomb. I mean, it was severely damaged and wounded and weakened, but it's amazing that it wasn't completely vaporized by the blast. And it still had enough juice in the tank to spike Gypsy with its tail, and it wasn't until Gypsy blazed it with a turbine in her chest that she manages to finally kill it. Number 1, Mega-Kaiju. A colossal, enormous behemoth hybrid of Shrikethorn, Hakuja, and Raijin, brought together and fused by hundreds of tiny drones. This thing is the most powerful kaiju ever seen in the Pacific Rim universe. It absolutely dwarves the Jaegers, its roar alone picking up cars and debris and flinging them aside as if they were dust. Like it even picks up Horizon Brave in its mouth and tosses it around like a chew toy. Speaking of which, this is Charlie. She's a Category 0.2 beagle. She's got poop-eating powers, occasionally gets scared by pigeons, and even once pissed on my pillow for ripping its arms and legs off. In this shot, it looks like Gypsy could comfortably sit on its back and ride it around like a big leathery horse. As an amalgamation, it has features from all the kaiju that went into making it. It has 2 tails like Shrikethorn did, which it uses to skewer Saber Athena. It has the armor plating from Raijin. It has the twin tusks from Shrikethorn. Amongst other things, most notably 3 brains, 1 from each kaiju. It can also punch the ground and unleash a huge shockwave and energy blast, which knocks all 4 Jaegers off their feet and into the air. It grabs hold of Guardian Bravo's laser whip and spins it around like a ragdoll. This thing is pretty overpowered. It snaps Gypsy's laser sword, slams her into the ground, and just gently swats her aside before heading towards Mount Fuji to be killed by Gypsy Avenger, supermanning her way through its eye. With 3 brains, you'd have thought that it would have the sense to just step to the side, but hey, whatever. The point is that this guy is the most powerful kaiju that the PPDC have ever faced. So that's the top 5 in terms of most powerful kaiju, but now I'm going to go through my favorites, and I'm generally basing this on how cool that I think they look. So let's start at number 5 with Trespasser. This is the original, the numero uno, the guy who trashed the Golden Gate Bridge and opened up a whole new horrifying chapter of human history as we learned that there was a whole society of evil aliens from another dimension after our natural resources. This guy is a chunky, towering bipedal behemoth with a large crest on its nose and another even larger one on its back. It has 2 large arms and 2 smaller ones, more centrally on its chest. He's got 4 eyes and pronounced jawbone littered with razor-sharp teeth, which give him a really evil look. He also has a yellow bioluminescent glow that shines out of its mouth, which looks just incredible. Look at this shot here. Trespasser's attack, because it was before the development of the Jaeger program, lasted 6 days, in which it destroyed 3 cities as the Air Force struggled to penetrate its thick hide with conventional weapons. Now, I read somewhere that because all this happened before the formation of the PPDC, they were never able to determine what category Trespasser was, which is a real shame, as I'd really like to know. I had always assumed that the scale, which coincidentally is called the Surisawa scale, was based on Trespasser as the baseline, and all other kaiju were compared to him. So Trespasser, as he was the first, would be a Cat 1, and the following kaiju all progressively got stronger, but I guess that's not the case. However, according to the video game Breach Wars, Trespasser is a Cat 1 kaiju. But then Travis Beecham says it might be, it might not have been. Regardless, I'd love to know what category Trespasser would have been. Number 4, Itak. One of the opponents of the doomed Jaeger Tacit Ronin in the novel Tales from the Drift, where pilots Duke and Mowari Jessup have to fight to stay conscious due to radiation leaking from a broken reactor core. Why is the reactor core broken? Well, Itak is why. There's just something so imposing about this guy and the way it's drawn with only these light blue bioluminescent glows as highlights, stopping it from being almost a complete silhouette. It has 6 arms, 4 sporting these scythe-like blades, and it has a single blade-like horn jutting out of its head, as well as its lower jaw that tapers down into a sharp point. I would have loved to have seen more of him, with Tales from the Drift choosing to spend more time on Duke and Morari's relationship, but more on that in my Tales from the Drift review, which I'll link here and down below. Number 3, Onibaba. This Category 2 was never going to make the power list, as it's only a Category 2, it's smaller than most of the other kaiju, and it doesn't last very long against Stacker in Coyote Tango. But I wanted to put this on the list just because of how utterly mental it looked. And I mean that in a good way. With the distinct crustacean look with its crab-like claws that can crush 50,000 pounds per square inch, which I guess is a lot. Who the fuck knows? It's got 4 crab-like legs, and I think it's fair to say that Onibaba is one of a kind. Bizarrely enough, considering the whole purpose of the kaiju in the first place, i.e. to take shit over and be aggressive, Onibaba is not openly hostile and rather passive. Despite the damage it caused to the general area of Tokyo, it actively avoids combat with the enemy, unless provoked. So what little Marco here did to provoke him, we will never know. Did the precursors just fuck up? I mean, it's interesting that they made a killing machine that's kind of an introvert. Like, if it comes up against a Jaeger, it'll just sit there and blush. Can you imagine Coyote Tango there with its big fucking cannons loading up and it's getting ready to fight, and this thing's kind of just pulling its hair over its face going, oh my god, this is so awkward. Number 2, Knifehead. Category 3 Knifehead gives us the first ever battle in Pacific Rim, and a scene that I still remember to this day. The entrance Knifehead makes is incredible, coming out of the ocean and roaring with this bioluminescent glow pulsating at the back of its throat and glowing blue eyes. The whole thing takes place in a thunderstorm with lightning forking and rain hammering down, and at the center of it all is this tiny little fishing boat. And just a side note on this, I love how in the first movie the pilots risked all just to protect these 5 guys in a trawler, and by the end of Uprising, the fucks given were so few that we had Saber Athena take out several floors of these buildings just to get our swords out. Anywho, back to Knifehead. Its signature feature is, of course, its knife head, no doubt inspired by the handsome goblin shark. It has 4 arms and heavy armor, and also a blowhole on the top of its head, which is good to know. And it's the largest Category 3 on record, eclipsing Yamarashi, which was the previous record holder. It puts its head blade to devastating use, spearing Gypsy before clawing off part of the cockpit and killing one of the 2 pilots before finally being overcome by a plasma caster shot at point blank range. Knifehead is important not only because it's one of my faves, but also because this fight between Knifehead and Gypsy Danger marks a turning point in the Kaiju War. In all the previous battles, the Kaiju had been unthinking, muscly brutes, easily defeated by the intelligence, weaponry, and tactics of the Rangers and their Jaegers. Knifehead is the first Kaiju to display overt intelligence and cunning. Subsequent engagements over the next 5 years demonstrate the Kaiju's increasing power, intelligence, and their ability to adapt to the Jaeger's weapons and pilots' tactics. So I definitely think that Knifehead deserves some recognition. And my number 1, I've talked about her before, it's Otachi. My favorite battle in my favorite part of the franchise features this. This is Otachi, a winged quadruped and one of the longest and heaviest cat-4s to ever crawl out of the ocean. We all remember when we first saw it unfurl its wings, don't we? And grab hold of Gypsy Danger with its talons and fly it to the very edge of fucking space. Something about seeing those wings unfurl really took me by surprise and had my jaw on the floor. I love that weird blue tongue that looked like some kind of alien plant from Planet Giant fucking Smurf or whatever it's called, Pandora. And I love how its mouth constantly is dripping with this glowing blue goo, and Otachi is eventually killed when Gypsy unfurls its chainsword and cuts it in half. But it has one more trick up its sleeve, as it turns out that it was pregnant the whole time, and its baby bursts out of its dead body to kill a bunch of people and swallow Hannibal Chow. So that is my list of top 5 kaiju. Now, I'm going to do a follow-up video called Kaiju We Need to See More Of in Pacific Rim that I will try and have posted next week, and that'll definitely have some less obvious entries on the list, from the graphic novels, from the black, from those little cutscenes and the flashbacks, so make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss that one. Also, while you're here, why not check out my video about Pacific Rim Blackout, which is a new graphic novel that should be coming out pretty soon. And I will see you very soon for the next one. Thank you very much for watching, and cheerio!